If there's one thing I despise, it is a fair fight. But if I must, then I must. May the best man win. Put her there.
Once upon a time, there was a little smartphone company that couldn't settle. Well, hold it. It actually started 2 years earlier with a much bigger company who couldn't succeed in making its own premium smartphones. The first 3 generations of Nexus were a showcase of specs and power with a price tag to match, so when 2012 brought us the Nexus 4, let's just say that we got to meet the first true flagship killer. It was by no means the best Nexus Google ever produced, but at $299 as a launch price, which later dipped an extra Benjamin, it was hard to resist the specs for the price. Oh, right. Back to 2014 when genius viral marketing led an unknown company to actually succeed in launching a flagship contender for a price that even made mid-rangers look exaggerated. For a better part of a decade, OnePlus took the world by storm, and during that time, the Nexus project became all but forgotten. Fast forward to 2022, and it seems that both companies realized that over time, becoming the villain was pretty much inevitable. On one corner, we have the OnePlus 10 Pro, a phone I'd easily call the best the company has ever made, even if with a strategy that blends both old and new. On the other, we have the Pixel 6 Pro, what I'd consider the best Google phone ever made, even if that still means a lot of experimentation. If you're wondering why this comparison makes any sense, have a look at their price tags in the United States to understand where I'm going. I'm Jaime Rivera with Pocketnow, and let's dive into our comparison. I know, off the bat this is a weird comparison because it seems both companies have been so impacted by the chip shortage that the availability of either of these phones is pretty selective. That said, given their close similarities and how the United States finally gets both, let's just say that this is as fair as it gets. Visually, both of these devices could not be more different. While the OnePlus 10 Pro looks like a blend of S21 Ultra and 13 Pro Max, the Pixel 6 Pro is like an S22 Ultra with the visor of the Nexus 6P, curved borders versus a boxier approach, matte glass versus a subtle gloss that does just as well at deterring fingerprints. Both come in shiny aluminum trims, with the Pixel offering a more advanced Gorilla Glass Victus on both sides, while on the 10 Pro you only get it at the front, while the back has the older Gorilla Glass 5. If ergonomics matter to you, I'd go OnePlus, as essentials like the power button are easier to reach, and then the Pixel is a hair taller and thicker, 2mm wider, and even 9 grams heavier. I can even tell OnePlus does a far better job at weight distribution when using either of these devices for an extended period of time. And listen, don't worry, the meager difference in the footprint doesn't mean that you'll miss out on anything. They both have nearly the same display size, with the 10 Pro having a slight edge in screen-to-body ratio and pixel density. Yes, the 10 Pro is providing 1 billion colors versus 16 million, but when you're given so much resolution on smartphone panels, you'll struggle to notice it being that much superior. The 10 Pro is also LTPO2 versus LTPO, but this is another element where you might not feel one display doing variable 120Hz smoother than the other. If anything, and something that does matter, is that the 10 Pro is brighter and handles extremes better, but in everything else, these are two gorgeous displays. They also both offer optical fingerprint scanners that are plenty fast, even if only OnePlus is doing facial recognition as an alternative. Pretty good looking phone, I'd say. It even dethroned. Now, I do wish that the bottom firing speakers on both weren't dramatically louder than the earpiece, but it's not like if combined they aren't great at doing so as a combo. And always on mode for the basics. Also, yes. Now, internally, things get pretty interesting because this is the first time we compare a Pixel that's not powered by Qualcomm or a OnePlus that doesn't win in all the numbers. So yes, Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 on the 10 Pro, Google Tensor on the Pixel, but then this is also a weird case where the OnePlus starts at less RAM, though starting storage is the same on both. They also offer the most advanced Wi-Fi options and Bluetooth along with all flavors of 5G. battery size is the same, but where OnePlus beats the pants off the Pixel is not just in the speed of charging, but also in the fact that you get the charger included in the box, while that is something you have to buy separately with Google. By now you'd think, fine, hardware is mostly owned by OnePlus, but since Google owns Android, the Pixel should own software, right? Well, not so fast. Oxygen OS has always been not just more stock than stock, but also more thoughtful about its flexibility when compared to Google. The lack of ergonomics of the Pixel's design only becomes more evident with Material U. Aside from a play of colors and larger text, reaching a ton of UI elements is a two-handed commitment, and then the 5x5 grid doesn't really allow you to maximize your canvas with more widgets. Now, in Google's defense, Oxygen OS does suffer from a bit of this. I mean, 5x6 on the grid is not that much better, but it's there, and things continue to tip in favor of OnePlus, because you can then enable or disable whatever you don't want, from the shelf to what gestures to do, where Google doesn't even let you use the at-a-glance space for anything else if you disable it. Overall, I won't deny that Material U is more visually pleasing, but my points go to OnePlus. To even keep the three-way mute slider here is proof that what wasn't broken did not get fixed. The user experience is then a mixed bag. Surely the Pixel gets software updates first, but boy have these been buggy, while OnePlus trails quickly behind with more stability. Also, if battery life is important to you, I'd go OnePlus, as it does a far better job at sipping power efficiently, while the Pixel can be hit or miss depending on updates. Phone calls were comparable, and even if both phones didn't start off too well when it came to data reliability, I'd say that has been fixed with updates over time as well. But fine, I leave the best for last. Once you talk cameras, this is where things completely flip around. If Google has historically beaten OnePlus in every single comparison while rocking dated sensors, it's so weird to finally make a comparison where Google is coming on top in horsepower, all while OnePlus only has a partnership for color tuning to show. Thing is, can I just say that I wasn't expecting this comparison to be so close that it's more a matter of taste. Once you pair photos side by side, wow, the OnePlus 10 Pro is putting a fair fight in almost everything. You're simply gonna have to pick if you prefer the warmer photos of the 10 Pro versus the 6 Pro. There are even cases where I prefer the OnePlus, as it has an added kick for color, and guys, this is against the king of contrast. Even in ultra-wide shots, I tend to drift more to the 10 Pro, but once you zoom in, it's no debate the Pixel wins because of physics. Switch to night photos, and again, the 10 Pro is really holding its own. I will say I noticed slightly more detail from the Pixel, but OnePlus is handling lens flares far better than Google, where the Pixel is notoriously terrible. Even zooming in, the 10 Pro is able to get a decent enough shot, though again, this is where things tip towards the Pixel. Selfies is an interesting battle because I tend to prefer wider shots, and Google provides these. OnePlus is not bad, but I do wish it offered the option. I also feel the Pixel handles portraits better, almost giving you this feeling that you're using an entirely different camera, while the 10 Pro is okay, but not as great. Obviously, once we switch to video, it is game over for OnePlus, which is sad because it was so close to winning. See, with the Pixel, you won't have to deal with the Rec 2020 color space, which makes the results from the 10 Pro look crazy unnatural, while Google sticks to the more conventional Rec 709 most of us humans use. Stabilization is comparable, and then I prefer Google's UI for zooming in and out through steps. Sure, OnePlus tries to do it better with a zoom slider, but then trying to use it is very unpredictable. And then selfie video is again Google territory. You get 4K resolution plus a wider crop and great stabilization, while the OnePlus 10 Pro is locked at 1080p and crops pretty close to the face if you want any stabilization on it. Seriously, OnePlus, it is pointless to give me all the 8K and 4K 120 from the primary if the selfie camera is this bad. To conclude, boy, is this a tough one. In the past, OnePlus would always win simply because their price differences were so dramatic, but what happens when that goes toe-to-toe? Better yet, what happens when, for the first time ever, it's Google bringing more hardware for the same money? On my book, OnePlus wins hardware, it wins software, and it even nails a ton of the user experience checks better than Google. Heck, you even get a faster charger in the box, and photography is pretty close, so technically, it does seem like a better value proposition, right? Well, it's not that simple. In 2022, I feel social media video has superseded photography in importance, so much so that you've got Instagram paying bonuses for Reels only to compete with TikTok. It's a phenomenon that cannot be ignored, and sadly, you can't do any of that with your phone if it does trashy video. I find it unforgivable that OnePlus is selling this 10 Pro with a mixed bag of problems, from the color space to a selfie camera that's no better than what shipped on the OnePlus 3T 7 years ago.
What's with you, man? Come on!
Sadly, if I'm paying 2022 flagship money, I don't want a phone with anything that's dated, and especially something every flagship and their mother has been doing for the last, 4 years? So if I had to pick one, the Pixel 6 Pro would be it. I'm seriously scratching my head because the OnePlus 10 Pro is such a good phone. It checked nearly all the boxes.
You were the chosen one!
But at its price, you need a phone that can do everything without excuses, and between these two, the Pixel 6 Pro wins my book. But oh man, I cannot wait to see what you guys think about this comparison in the comments down below. And while you're at it, follow us on social media and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this one. You can also follow me on my personal handles to see me make all these hard decisions. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like what you saw. I'm Jaime Rivera. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.